What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be doing something that a lot of you guys have asked me to do, which is to go through each Galactic Assault map in the game and comment on who I think the best heroes and villains are for each map. Since there are now 13 maps in the game, I'm going to split it into separate videos for both the heroes and the villains, so today we're going to be focusing on the best villains. Now, before I get started, I do just want to make a disclaimer that this isn't necessarily the best villains for each map. This is more so my own personal best, seeing as I don't think there really is such a thing as the best heroes and villains on each map, since it really does just come down to personal preference. The point of this video is more so just to help those of you who are struggling to choose the right hero for each map, and although these choices don't necessarily guarantee that you will do well, hopefully this will at least be a good starting point for those of you who are in need of some help. I'm sure a lot of you will most likely disagree with some of the choices throughout the video, which is perfectly fine, and if that is the case, then definitely leave a comment down below and let me know which characters you think should replace some of my choices. Obviously that might help others who are reading through the comments as well, so feel free to completely destroy my list if you do happen to disagree, as like I said, there really is no right or wrong when it comes to this topic. Anyway, with that little disclaimer out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get stuck into the maps in alphabetical order, and I'll try and fly through these as quick as possible so that the video doesn't drag on for too long. I'm going to mention my best character, but I will sometimes mention a second character as well, since a lot of maps have two characters that are equally as good as each other, so it is often hard to tell which of the two is the best. So starting off with Crate, and the best character for this map by a very long margin is Bosk. I'd have to say he's probably the best all-round character in the game, since he can do extremely well at long range and probably even better at close range, which is absolutely perfect for this map. With the first phase being perfect for snipers and the second and third being perfect for close quarters, Bosk can absolutely dominate pretty much every single area on the map, especially the last phase where you can pretty much just lock down areas by combining all of your abilities. Moving on to the Death Star now, and for this one you really can't go past General Grievous, seeing as the map is so well suited for Saber users, and in my opinion he's probably the best Saber character in the game. Using his Claw Rush in the tight hallways and then cleaning up anyone nearby with his Saber is not only very effective, but it is also super satisfying, especially with his one-hit kill card equipped. And as you can see in this clip, you can often clean up entire squads, and there isn't really too much they can do about it at all. Vader would have to be the next best if you can't get your hands on Grievous, seeing as he can also just lock down the hallways and completely melt anyone in his path. Moving on to Endor, and by far my favourite character on this map is Boba Fett. Being able to fly around amongst the trees and pretty much always be in some sort of cover is very well suited to Boba, and if you do usually struggle with Boba, then this is probably one of the best maps to practice on as well, seeing as you can get to cover fairly easily most of the time. A lot of people do tend to struggle with Boba, however, so if that is the case, then Maul would probably be my next best for this map. Using his speed amongst the trees can often just completely throw your enemies off and leads to some very nice kill streaks. Moving on to Geonosis, and again for this map I'd probably have to recommend using Bosk for the exact same reasons as I mentioned earlier. This map has a lot of open areas as well as close quarters fighting too, so with Bosk you can pretty much make sure that you're well suited to whatever situation you do find yourself in. Not only that, but he is also super useful when it comes to taking out the ATTEs, so if you do enjoy playing the objective, then Bosk is easily one of the best characters for this map. If you are comfortable with Boba, then he'd probably be the next character I'd recommend. However, this is really only if you are a decent Boba player, seeing as the wide open areas can often lead to trouble if you're not too sure how to get out of a sticky situation. Next we have Hoth, and again I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record, but you really can't go past Bosk for this one. This map is really similar to Crate in terms of starting off with a sniper's paradise and then turning into a really close quarters style of map, and so again he is perfectly suited to that type of map. If you're more inclined to use a Saber hero, Vader is definitely one of the best villains for Hoth. He can do surprisingly well in the first phase, and once you do manage to get inside, he's an absolute tank when it comes to taking those objectives in the second and third phases. Moving on to everyone's favourite map in Jakku, and surprisingly I'd have to say that Kylo Ren is probably one of the better characters to use on this map, mainly due to his ability to clear out objectives with his force pull. We all know that this map is pretty much one massive choke point, and so it can be very handy to make your enemies come to you and then take them out, rather than having to head in and risk dying just to take control of the objectives. Moving on to Camino now, and I definitely have to recommend Grievous for this one, pretty much for the exact same reasons as I did on the Death Star. Camino is obviously much more open than the Death Star, but even still he does seem to be able to dominate on this map. I find that when you get up around the enemy spawn points, you can usually hold the enemy team off a lot, which obviously helps your team take control of the objectives, and there really isn't any part of this map where you can't do well with Grievous if you do play your cards right. Next we have Kashyyyk, and again for this one I probably would have to recommend using Grievous if you do have a chance. On paper this map shouldn't really suit Saber users, seeing as it is so open, but once you get past that first half of the first phase, he seems to be able to absolutely dominate. At this point I probably have about 5 or 6 50+ kill streaks with Grievous, and I'm pretty sure all but one ton of those were on this map, so I definitely think he's worth giving a shot on Kashyyyk. If you do struggle with saber users though, Boba is probably the next best character. Being able to get up on the rooftops and into those hard to reach places can be a massive help, and now that he has his health card, he's a hell of a lot of fun to use on this map. Moving on to Naboo now, and for this one I don't think you can go past Darth Maul, especially if you can get him earlier on in the first phase, since he can be absolutely dominant on that part of the map. Being able to move around the way he can, you can cause some serious damage, and there is always cover nearby, so if you do get into trouble you can usually survive fairly easily. As for the second and third phases, Bossk is definitely up there as one of the best as well. His Dioxis and micro grenades in those tight hallways can genuinely keep the whole other team at bay without too much trouble at all. So he's another one that's definitely worth giving a shot, and he's arguably a better choice than Maul. It really does just come down to your playstyle. Moving on to Starkiller Base now, and for this one I really can't go past Boba Fett, especially for the first and second phases. Since this map is pretty flat yet has a lot of cover all over the place, not many people tend to look up, so if you are adept at flying and shooting then you can have an absolute field day on this one. For the last phase however, and bear with me here because I know what everyone's going to say, but Phasma is honestly one of the better characters in the game for this phase, pretty much just because of her turret. Putting it down in an area near the objective can pretty much make it impossible for the enemies to win, so despite her being one of the worst characters in the game, she is actually surprisingly decent on Starkiller. Moving on to Takodana now, and for this one, Kylo is probably one of the better characters again, mainly for the same reasons as I mentioned earlier. This map can be pretty hard to take the objectives on, as I'm sure you all know, so being able to pull enemies away as well as freezing them on the spot can be super helpful for the rest of your team. Not only that, but he is obviously cheaper to unlock on this map too, so that does play a big part as you don't have to worry as much about others beating you to getting the first hero. The second last map to cover is Tatooine, and for this one, again, I definitely recommend giving Boba a try, whether you are confident with him or not. Being able to get up on the rooftops where not many others can get is super helpful for staying alive, and it's pretty rare that people do look up in this game, as I said earlier, so you can often deal some serious damage from up there if you do play it smart. If you do struggle with Boba, then Grievous is definitely the next best character. Those close quarters playstyles on this map works perfectly, and you can pretty much clear out objectives on your own without too much trouble at all. Now last but definitely not least, we have Yavin 4, and again, gonna sound like a broken record here, but Boba is by far one of the better characters to choose, pretty much for the exact same reasons as both Tatooine and Endor. The combination of buildings and tree cover gives you a massive advantage, and I personally have some of my best kill streaks with Boba on this map since it is such a large map. Again, if you aren't the best Boba player, then Maul would probably have to be the next best. Being able to move around so quick among all the trees and cover makes him extremely hard to take out, so he's definitely a good choice if you aren't too confident with Boba Fett. So that is actually it for all 13 Galactic Assault maps in the game, and if you did enjoy the video then make sure to leave a like to help support the channel. Like I mentioned earlier, I do just want to reiterate that these are more so my own personal best characters, so I can almost guarantee that most of you will disagree with a lot of the characters in the video. If that is the case, like I said, make sure to let everyone know down in the comments section, as leaving your own personal best characters might help someone better than the actual video itself. So definitely don't hesitate to leave a comment and let us know of some of your own choices. If you are new to the channel, then definitely feel free to subscribe and make sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 guides or live streams. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.